Good evening. Today, our topic of discussion is varicose vein. For the all undergraduate students and for some for postgraduate students, I have divided the topic in three parts. Today, I'll be discussing about the first part. So, for varicose vein discussion, I have divided this topic under some headings like definitions and terminologies, anatomy, physiology, pathophysiology, clinical features, investigations, treatment, recent advances, and venous ulcer. Along with venous ulcer, I'll be also discussing ulcer of foot and diabetic ulcer later. So today, my discussion will be restricted up to clinical features. So varicose vein can come as a long case in your practical for both undergraduates and postgraduates. So for that purpose, clinical features and clinical examination is very much important, though not very much relevant for the practical uh, part of the disease when you are dealing the patient with it. Next, some questions may come in the theory case like recent advances in the management of varicose veins, management of venous ulcer, CEAP classifications, and also the management of a patient with varicose vein of left leg affecting the long saphenous vein. These type of questions can occur. So first, we are going to know some terminologies. First is telangiectasia. It is confluence of dilated intradermal venules of less than 1 millimeter in diameter, then reticular veins, dilated subdermal veins of 1 to 3 millimeter in diameter, ankle flare, dilated group of reticular veins near medial malleolus. Blowout is a localized dilatation of vein which is dome-like or ballooned out. Next is saphenous varix. This dilated long saphenous vein near saphenofemoral junction, that is near its termination. Atrophic blanchi, that is atrophic skin with pigmentation and reticular veins seen in ankle regions. And spider veins are smaller and thinner than varicose veins and usually appear on the face or legs. So this is are the few definitions you should remember while going through the topic of varicose veins. So what is the definition of varicose veins? Before coming for the definition, you should know what is venous insufficiency. It is a condition of inadequate venous return and hypertension when the patient is in an upright position. Now, varicose veins are defined as superficial veins which permanently have lost its valvular efficiency and as a product of the resultant venous hypertension in the standing position become dilated, tortuous, elongated, and thickened. So this is the definition of varicose veins. Now coming to anatomy. So you have to know what are the fascias, veins, and cutaneous nerves of the lower limb along with a little bit of lymphatics of the lower limb. So the subcutaneous tissue of the hip and thigh is continuous with that of the inferior abdominal wall and buttock. At the knee, the subcutaneous tissue loses its fat and blends with the deep fascia. Deep fascia is a strong and inelastic. It invades the lower limb. It limits outwards expansion of the contracting musculature. Thus, the increased pressure pumps the blood proximally to the veins. So this pressure actually pumps the blood through the veins. Deep fascia of the thigh is also known as fascia lata, which attaches to and is continuous with the inguinal ligament, pubic arch, body of the pubis, and pubic tubercle. It also attaches with Kapp's fascia of the inferior abdominal wall, which attaches to deep fascia inferior to the inguinal ligament. It also attaches to the iliac crest laterally and posteriorly. These also have attachment with sacrum, coccyx, sacrotuberous ligament, and ischial tuberosity posteriorly, and also give attachment to exposed parts of bones at the knee and deep fascia of the leg. Now coming to the surgical anatomy of venous system of lower limb. It is divided into three systems: superficial venous system, perforators, and deep venous system. So what is superficial venous system? It comprises of great saphenous vein, and short saphenous vein. Now, great saphenous vein is formed by the union of dorsal digital vein of the great toe and the dorsal venous arch. It ascends anterior to the medial malleolus, posterior to the medial condyle of the femur. It freely communicates with the small saphenous vein. Proximally, it traverses the saphenous opening in the fascia to enter the femoral vein. Now, what is saphenous opening navel? This is a gap in the fascia lata, inferolateral to the inguinal ligament, lateral to the pubic tubercle, that is 3.75 centimeter below and lateral. Its medial margin is smooth, lateral margin is sharp, forming the falciform ligament. Next is cribriform fascia. It is a sleeve-like membrane covering the saphenous opening. Now, what is short saphenous vein? It's formed by the union of the dorsal digital vein of the fifth digit and distal venous arch. Runs posterior to the lateral malleolus, lateral to the calcaneal tendon, that is tendon Achilles. Runs superiorly, medial to the fibula and penetrates the deep fascia of the popliteal fossa, ascends between the heads of the gastrocnemius muscle to join the popliteal vein. Now, as compared to the great saphenous vein, the termination in short saphenous vein is not fixed. The maximum time it terminates above the 2A of gastrocnemius in the popliteal vein, but many a time it can also terminate below that. What are the tributaries of long saphenous vein and communications? Just below knee, long saphenous vein receives posterior arch vein, that is Leonardo's vein, which collect the blood from posterior medial aspect of cuff. Anterior veins of leg, that is stocking vein, ascend across the shin and join either long saphenous vein or posterior arch vein. There is a free anastomosis between tributaries of short saphenous vein and venous arch connecting medial ankle perforating vein, and these medial ankle perforating veins are connected with long saphenous vein in lower third of leg. In the thigh, before entering the saphenous vein, it receives anterolateral vein, posterior medial vein of thigh, superficial external pudendal vein, superficial epigastric vein, superficial circumflex iliac vein, and deep external pudendal vein. In the lower third of the thigh, long saphenous vein connect with the femoral vein in Hunter's canal by long perforating veins known as Hunterian perforator. Structures accompanying the short saphenous vein: sural nerve in lower third of leg, lymphatic trunk which drains lateral aspect of foot and drain in the popliteal lymph nodes. Now, where the vein passes through fascia, posterior cutaneous nerve emerges out from deep to superficial. In the upper part of vein, it communicates with long saphenous vein via the posterior medial vein of the leg. Short saphenous vein may run above the popliteal space and end in deep veins in lower thigh, or may end in long saphenous vein in upper thigh. Now, perforators. What is perforator? They penetrate the deep fascia and also tributaries of saphenous veins. There are valves located just distal to penetration of deep fascia. These veins cross the deep fascia obliquely, and they actually come at the communicator between the superficial and deep venous system. So muscle contraction causes the valves to close prior to venous compression. So blood is forced proximally. This is known as musculovenous pumps. These are all attributed to the function of perforators. Now, there are two types of perforating veins. One is indirect perforating veins, other is direct perforating veins. Indirect perforating veins consist of small superficial veins which penetrate the deep fascia to connect with the vessels in muscle and in turn end in deep vein. So before going to the deep vein, they first communicate with the muscular veins. And direct perforating veins, they directly connect superficial veins with deep veins. Now, this is the saphenofemoral junction. Now, among the direct perforators in thigh, adductor canal perforator connects long saphenous vein with femoral vein in lower part of the adductor canal, which is known as Hunterian perforator. In the lower thigh, on medial aspect, long saphenous vein connects femoral vein via Dodds perforator. This is the distal thigh. And below knee, perforator connects long saphenous vein or posterior arch vein with posterior tibial vein known as Boyd's perforator. This is Boyd's perforator. In leg, lateral perforator is presented at the junction of mid and lower third of leg. It connects short saphenous vein with peroneal vein. Medially, there are three perforators which connects posterior vein with posterior tibial vein known as Cockett's perforator. These are the Cockett perforators. Now, there are three sets of Cockett perforators. Upper medial perforator lies at the junction of middle and lower third of leg. Middle medial perforator lies 4 inch above the medial malleolus. Lower medial perforator lies posterior inferior to the medial malleolus. Now, deep venous systems comprise of femoral vein, popliteal vein, anterior and posterior tibular vein, and peroneal vein. So usually they are paired with named arteries inside a vascular sheath. This allows arterial pulsation to force blood proximally. The popliteal vein joins the femoral vein in the popliteal fossa. Femoral vein is joined by the deep vein of the thigh. The femoral vein passes deep to the inguinal ligament to become the external iliac vein. So this is as a whole are the vascular anatomy of lower limb, mainly the venous anatomy. Now, it is a very important is venous valves, which actually causes the flow of vein unidirectional. So the venous valves are abundant in the distal lower extremity and number of valves decreases proximally, with no valves in superior and inferior vena cava. Prevent reverse flow in the veins. Ensure that the blood is pumped from the superficial to the deep system and back towards the heart when the patient is walking. So this is the picture of healthy vein and these varicose veins. Now lymphatic drainage of lower limb. This is again superficial and deep. Superficial lymphatic vessels accompany the saphenous veins, great and small. Superficial lymphatics end at the superficial inguinal nodes. Just most of the lymph drains to the external iliac node, some drains to the deep inguinal nodes. Small lymphatics drain the popliteal nodes. And deep lymphatics drain to the popliteal nodes, which then drain to the inguinal nodes, then to the external iliac nodes. Both deep and superficial drain to the lumbar lymphatics. Now, surgical physiology of venous drainage. Blood is returned to the heart from the lower limbs against gravity and it is helped by following mechanisms. Calf muscle pump. It is the alternate contraction and relaxation of the muscles of leg which pushes blood against gravity. The pressure within the calf compartment rises to 200 to 300 millimeter mercury during walking or exercise. And competent valves, which are unidirectional, only allows the blood to flow from superficial to deep and deep to heart. Now, regarding the understanding of physiology of this calf muscle pump, we should know what is ambulatory venous pressure. When standing motionless with valves in the neutral position, the pressure in the veins of the foot gradually increases until it equals the hydrostatic pressure developed by the column of blood stretching between the foot and the heart. In a person of average height, it is about perhaps 90 millimeter mercury. With active movement, the muscle pumps and valves come into play, and the villus column is divided into several smaller columns, each at a lower pressure. So as we move from foot to heart, as there is compartmentalization of the limb with the valves, the pressure decreases as we move on, so that blood can go from deep superficial to deep and deep to the heart, deep venous system to the heart. As a result, the pressure in the foot veins fall in health to less than 25 millimeter mercury upon walking. The ambulatory venous pressure is then 25 millimeter mercury. Patients with muscle pump and or venous valve failure and or venous airflow obstruction demonstrate a raised AVP, that is ambulatory venous pressure. Such sustained venous hypertension is a major factor contributing to the development of skin changes. What is venous recirculation? In patients with varicose veins, there is often a recirculation of venous blood within the leg. During cuff relaxation, abnormally large volumes of blood enter the muscle pump from the superficial varices. The muscle pump expels blood from the leg only for it to re-enter the leg by refluxing down superficial varices. This blood then re-enters the muscle pump through perforating veins in the lower cuff and so on. By far the most powerful force propelling venous return flow is the musculovenous pumping mechanism, which can handle large volumes rapidly and generate a force well in excess of that required for venous return against gravity. When the leaf is in the dependent position, a normal set of valves in the deep and superficial veins will prevent reflux of blood against the normal direction of venous flow. Failure of competence in the venous valves at saphenofemoral and saphenopopliteal junction will lead to retrograde flow down the limb when the patient stands up or after exercise movement has resulted in slack veins in the lower part of the leg. In the superficial veins, this is the basis of the most common venous disorder, simple, leading to simple varicose veins. Now the pathophysiology. The pathophysiology behind the formation or is complicated and involves the concept of ambulatory venous hypertension. In healthy veins, the flow of venous blood is through the superficial system to deep system and up the leg and towards the heart. One-way venous valves are found in both system and the perforating veins. Incompetence in any of these valves can lead to disruption in unidirectional flow of blood towards the heart and result in ambulatory venous hypertension. Incompetence in the superficial venous system alone usually results from failure at valves located at the saphenofemoral and saphenopopliteal junction. The gravitational weight of the column of blood along the length of the vein creates hydrostatic pressure, which is worse at the more distal aspect of the length of vein. Reflux at or near the saphenofemoral junction does not always come through the terminal valve of the great saphenous vein, nor does it always involve the entire trunk of the great saphenous vein. Reflux can enter the great saphenous vein below the subterminal valve or even immediately below the junction, passing through a failed subterminal valve to mimic true SFG incompetence. Reflux can also pass directly into any of the other veins that join the great saphenous vein at the level, or it may pass a few centimeters along the great saphenous vein and then abandon the great saphenous vein for another branch vessel. Incompetence of the perforating veins leads to hydrodynamic pressure. The cuff pump mechanism helps to empty the deep venous system, but if perforating vein valve fails, then the pressure generated in the deep venous system by the cuff pump mechanism are transmitted into the superficial vein system by the incompetent perforating veins. Once venous hypertension is present, the venous dysfunction continues to worsen through a superficial circle. Pooled blood and venous hypertension leads to venous dilatation, which then causes greater valvular insufficiency. Over time, with more local dilatation, other adjacent valves subsequently fail, and after a series of valves has failed, the entire superficial venous system is incompetent. This can cause subsequent perforated and deep venous valvular dysfunction. The clinical findings of varicose veins, reticular veins, and telangiectasias are due to the hypertension in the superficial venous system that spreads to collateral veins and tributary veins, causing dilated tortuous structures. In contrast to the superficial veins, the deep veins do not become excessively distended. They can withstand the increased pressure because of their construction and the confining fascia. This is the pathophysiology: reflux of blood into superficial veins due to valve incompetence, venous hypertension in superficial veins. Superficial veins becomes dilated, tortuous, elongated. Now the primary varicose veins. No obvious cause could be found. They may occur as a result of congenital weakness in the vein, while due to the defective connective tissue and smooth muscle or due to congenital absence or abnormality of valves. There are two syndromes: Klippel-Feil-Trenaunay syndrome, that is congenital anomaly where superficial and deep veins do not have any valves, also called valveless syndrome. Kasabach-Merit syndrome is characterized by the combination of rapidly growing vascular tumor, thrombocytopenia, microangiopathic hemolytic anemia, and consumption coagulopathy. There are primary varicosity can also be genetic. Some patients inherit abnormalities in FOXC2 gene. These factors, in addition to prolonged standing, contribute to the development of varicose veins. Primary varicose are 95% are caused by an increase in venous suppression in the superficial veins at the leg due to damage to the venous valves between the deep and superficial venous system. These increase may be at the saphenofemoral junction between the long saphenous vein and the common femoral vein in the groin, the saphenopopliteal junction between the short saphenous vein and the popliteal vein in the popliteal fossa, and other sites in perforators. Now, what are secondary varicose veins? They are 5% occur when the increased venous pressure in the superficial venous system is due to disturbance in venous blood flow elsewhere. For example, pelvic thrombosis or obstruction in deep veins by pelvic mass, extensive thrombosis of the veins in the leg, deep vein thrombosis, arteriovenous malformations, pregnancy, and IVC thrombosis. Secondary varicose veins are invariably associated with venous hypertension in deep venous system with secondary involvement of superficial venous system. What are risk factors? Age. Aging causes wear and tear, eventually that wear causes the valves to malfunction. Sex. Women are more prone to develop varicose veins because hormonal changes during pregnancy or menopause. Progesterone relaxes venous walls. Hormone replacement therapy and OCP may increase the risk of varicose veins. Genetics. Obesity increases venous hypertension. Standing for long periods of time. Prolonged immobile standing impairs venous return. Now come to classification, CEAP classification of lower extremity venous diseases. Now C for clinical signs, that is grade 0 to 6, supplemented by S for symptomatic and A for asymptomatic. E etiology classification, congenital, primary, secondary. A for anatomical distribution, that is superficial, deep or perforator, alone or in combination. And P for pathophysiologic dysfunction, reflux or obstruction, alone or in combination. Now coming to the details. Now this is the CAP classification. C0, no visible or palpable signs of disease. C1, telangiectasias or reticular veins. C2, varicose veins. C3, edema. C4A, pigmentation or eczema. C4B, lipodermatosclerosis or atrophic branche. C5, healed venous ulcer. C6, active venous ulcer, symptomatic, including ache, pain, tightness, skin irritations, heaviness, muscle cramps, and other complications attributable to venous dysfunction. A is asymptomatic. Etiology classification: EC congenital, EP primary, ES secondary, EN no venous cause identified. Anatomic distribution: AS superficial veins, AP perforated veins, AD deep veins, AN no venous location identified. Pathophysiologic: PR for reflux, PO for obstruction, PRO obstruction and reflux, and PN no venous pathophysiology identifiable. So now segmental localization of chronic lower extremity venous disease. According to segment number, they are superficial vein 1 to 15 and deep veins 16 to 15, 16. Now, superficial veins 1 to 5 and deep veins next turn. According to superficial veins, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are: 1 is telangiectasia or reticular veins along the greater saphenous vein, 2 is above knee, 3 is below knee, 4 is lesser or short saphenous vein, and 5 is non-saphenous varicosities. Now in deep vein, that is 6 is inferior vena cava, 7 is common iliac, 8 is internal iliac, 9 external iliac, 10 pelvic, gonadal, broad ligament and femoral, 11 is common, 12 is deep, and 13 is superficial peroneal, 14 is popliteal, 15 is tibial, anterior, posterior or peroneal, 16 is muscular like gastrointestinal, soleal, others, 17 thigh veins, and 18 calf veins. If these veins are affected according to the segmental, they are named numerologically from 1 to 18. Now coming to the clinical features. Symptoms are unsightliness, that is many patients with varicose veins complains of the unsightliness produced by tortuous veins in their lower limbs. Massive varicosities in men often cause few symptoms, while minor varicosities in women may be the source of major concern. Aches and pains. Diffuse dull ache felt throughout the leg, which gets worse as the day passes and is exacerbated by the prolonged standing. Relief of the discomfort by wearing a elastic stocking provides good circumstantial evidence that the pain is of venous origin. History of bursting pain during exercise, that is venous claudication, may indicate venous outflow obstruction. Next is ankle edema, not a common or prominent feature of varicose veins, usually mild and only become noticeable at the end of the day. Other causes of edema, such as deep vein obstruction or lymphatic obstruction, must be excluded if there is marked edema and the patient complains of swelling in the lower limb as well as ankle. Superficial thrombophlebitis, hemorrhage, pruritus, eczema, pigmentation, lipodermatosclerosis, and ulceration. And lastly are the complications. Extremely painful ulcers may form on the skin near varicose veins, particularly near the ankles. Brownish pigmentation usually precedes the development of an ulcer. Occasionally, veins become enlarged, bleeding, superficial thrombophlebitis, and equinus deformity. These are the complications that can occur in varicose vein. So, with this, we should end today's topic. Next topic of varicose vein will be dealing with the management, that is investigations, treatment, and the recent advances in the management of treatment of varicose vein.